Welcome to episode 7 of the Integrated Human Podcast, where we explore true holistic health, true holistic well-being, right? Today, we're going to be talking about blood sugar and how blood sugar isn't just about diabetes, right? Blood sugar actually impacts the entire body, your physiology. And we're going to explain how all of these different physiological functions can be impacted positively or negatively through your blood sugar, right? So without that being said, what is blood sugar? Blood sugar is simply the sugar that's inside of your blood, right? And your body actually has a homeostatic range that it likes to be in, a normalized range that it likes to have the blood sugar in. So if your blood sugar goes too high out of that range, your body stimulates insulin, a hormone secreted by the pancreas, to really lower the sugar inside of the blood and move it into fat cells, muscles, and things of that nature. Now, if your blood sugar goes too low out of that range, your body's going to stimulate and secrete a hormone called glucagon, which raises the sugar inside of the blood to bring it into that normal range. So it's a very seesawing effect, but the objective is to keep it in a nice, healthy range through diet and lifestyle modifications, in which we're going to talk about. So before we move forward, we're going to also talk about the different physiological functions that blood sugar impacts positively or negatively. So with that being said, blood sugar impacts your sleep, it impacts your nervous system, it impacts your hormonal health, it impacts your mood, and it impacts your energy and your ability to sustain energy throughout the day, right? So with that being said, we're going to talk about how blood sugar affects your nervous system, right? We're going to go down the chain. So when your blood sugar is unstable, you're going to directly affect your nervous system. How? So when your blood sugar is unstable, your body doesn't want your blood sugar out of the normalized range. So that's going to cause a stressed response, which is a sympathetically dominant response. And in that state, your nervous system, we already know this is tied to, you have a parasympathetic side of your nervous system, rest and digest, and you have the sympathetic side of your nervous system, fight or flight. So when your blood sugar is out of normal range, it creates a fight or flight response, sympathetic response inside of your body. And it's in this state in which your body actually prioritizes the production of cortisol. So now, when your blood sugar is unstable and not being normalized adequately, you stimulate the sympathetic nervous system, which is your fight or flight nervous system, which directly impacts your hormones, because in that side or branch of your nervous system, you're stimulating stress hormones. Now, with that being said, your sympathetic nervous system is the catabolic side of your system, right? Stress hormones are catabolic. Catabolic just means tissue breaking. It breaks things down. So this is why it's important to really stay normalized, because if you're not really balanced, you're always going to put yourself in a breaking down experience within your body, which isn't conducive over a period of time. So if you're constantly in that stress state, this is going to impact your mood, right? And your energy. But this is going to impact your mood. This is going to make you very irritable. This is going to make you very anxious, jittery, all these kind of things, right? And then that's going to directly impact your energy, having crashes, right? Because cortisol releases sugar inside of the blood. And that release of sugar inside the blood can tip that scale too high and create high blood sugar, right? Now your body has to stimulate insulin to take that sugar out the blood, in which now you're coming too low, right? So in this stressed state chronically, through your diet and lifestyle habits, you're creating this big up and down winding effect, which is going to impact your energy, right? Because your energy is directly correlated to your ability to stabilize your blood sugar. If you're in this normal moderate range of adequate blood sugar, your energy will stay sustained. But the minute you go too high, you're going to have an excitatory response of high energy, but then it's going to come with a crash, and now you have low energy. So you don't really have consistency within your days in terms of your energy, which means that you can't sustain your energy. So this is how balancing the blood sugar is super important because it really goes down that chain, right? And then that is going to impact sleep. So with that being said, when you are not adequately stabilizing your blood sugar, it's going to impact your nervous system, which shifts your body into a sympathetic dominant state, right? Which is a fight or flight state, which means it's a stress state, which means if you're in a stress state, you're going to produce stress hormones, which are tissue breaking, right? Which is going to impact your recovery, right? It's also going to impact your ability to rebuild different cells and all those different physiological functions that happen within the body, which is going to impact your mood, which is then going to impact your energy, and then that's going to impact your sleep, right? Because if you have too much cortisol in the blood, cortisol actually wakes you up. You see, cortisol is supposed to follow a circadian rhythm. When you wake up in the morning, that's when cortisol is at its highest. And throughout the day, cortisol lowers and lowers and lowers, so then you can go to sleep, right? However, when you're in a stress state, cortisol is being produced. So if your blood sugar is imbalanced, then you're constantly producing too much cortisol, which is lingering inside of the blood, right? Which is going to keep you up at night and mess with your sleep patterns. So now you're creating this vicious cycle because now, since you can't sleep, that's going to even produce more cortisol and add stress to the adrenal glands to produce stress hormones to keep you going throughout the day on that little bit of rest that you had. So this is how one little thing such as blood sugar can impact the entire body negatively or positively. So with that being said, when you're balancing your blood sugar, you're giving your body the okay signal to start producing positive reactions inside of the body. So now you can become parasympathetically dominant, which means the rest and digest state. So now in this state, with normalized blood sugar, your body can produce anabolic hormones, right? Which means that's the hormones that it's going to prioritize since it's in a rest and digest state. So now you can heal cells, your muscles. You can produce all different types of hormones for all different functions and phases of the body. So now that you're producing healthy hormones, you're now going to produce a healthy mood, right? And now that you have this healthy mood, with blood sugar being stabilized means that you're going to have adequate energy production plus sustainability because your blood sugar is staying in this nice medium range, not going too high and too low, which means that you can effectively sustain your levels of energy throughout the day without crashing, right? So then that directly integrates with sleep because now that your blood sugar is in a healthy range, you then don't have an overproduction of stress hormones like cortisol inside of the blood before bed, which means that you can effectively fall to sleep and have sufficient rest, right? So this is very important. In shifting gears, we're going to be talking about how your diet and lifestyle directly impacts your blood sugar and how negative diet and lifestyle implications create these negative effects and how positive diet and lifestyle modifications create positive effects. So with that being said, what creates blood sugar imbalances? Easily put, if we start with diet, first and foremost, protein, fat, and fiber are essential for blood sugar stabilization. Why? Because fiber and fat slow the absorption, as well as protein, slow the absorption of sugar inside of the blood. So whenever you have carbohydrates that you're consuming, it's best to really consume them and eat them around protein, fat, and fiber. Because now that you ate that fuel source, because carbs are fuel for the body, its main source is energy. That's the purpose, right? So when you add the carbohydrates to your meals, but you surround it with protein, fat, and fiber, as it gets digested, the sugar inside of those carbs that it gets broken down into actually get released adequately and slowly because of the protein, fat, and fiber. So now you can have your blood sugar be raised in a nice at a moderate pace so it doesn't spike or crash. Now, if you have that same carbohydrate fuel source without adequate protein, fat, and fiber, you now don't have anything to slow the release of that sugar, which can then spike it and dip it, right? Now, to go even further in that, carbohydrate sources are very important too, right? So you don't want to be consuming refined carbohydrates because that has a high glycemic index, which is going to spike your blood sugar really irregardlessly of protein, fat, and fiber surrounded by it. Although it will slow it down, it'll still have an impact on blood sugar. For instance, white flour, white sugar, refined processed foods that are infused with these sugars and fiberless flours and things of that nature are going to dramatically impact your blood sugar, which is very important if you're going to consume, grains and natural sugars and stuff, that they be organic and natural, because now you're going to get the fiber content inside of it, the protein as well, which is going to slow the absorption of that inside of the blood. So if you're going to consume these things, you need to make sure you're doing organic whole wheat, right? You're doing natural sweeteners like maple syrup, like dates, real whole fruits, right, that have fiber in it, those kind of things, right? And then there are other things that create blood sugar imbalances, such as sleep. If you're not getting sufficient rest, what are you going to do? You're probably going to get a cup of coffee, which is going to overstimulate you and going to have you produce stress hormones, right? Now the stress hormones, cortisol, is going to put too much sugar inside of the blood, which is going to spike your blood sugar and create this seesaw effect. So having poor sleep is directly going to impact your blood sugar and really create this big up and down effect. So sleeping adequately is going to keep it normalized. Another thing that's going to keep your blood sugar dysregulated is, again, not having adequate protein, fiber, and fat inside of your diet. If you really up that inside of your diet, you're really going to see noticeable differences in your energy and sustainability. Now, how do you balance blood sugar? Now, chronic stress is another blood sugar killer too, because if you're chronically stressed, that means that you're sympathetically dominant, and we know what side of the nervous system that is, fight or flight. So now you're going to produce stress hormones inadvertently and going to directly impact your blood sugar, right? So this is a short lecture on how blood sugar is not just about diabetes, but is completely impacting your entire physiology, right? So the key things to take away from this is, when you balance your blood sugar, you're activating the rest and digest state of your nervous system, which is producing anabolic and growth hormones, which builds the body up, right? Which in that turn, being in a parasympathetic dominant state, is hormone balancing of all different phases and functions of your body, which then is going to produce healthy moods, right? Which then is going to produce healthy energy and sustainability, which is also going to increase your digestive system and your digestive power, because the parasympathetic state is the rest and digest state. So that means stomach acid increases, your secretions of enzymes to break down foods and absorb your foods and eliminate increases. All these things increase just by balancing your blood sugar, right? So that is how you balance your blood sugar, and understand that blood sugar isn't just a diabetes thing. Blood sugar is an important mechanism to control and normalize and keep in a homeostatic range to positively impact your entire physiology. Hope you enjoyed this episode. Hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, and share this with someone who has blood sugar issues. And if you have blood sugar issues, really apply these practical tips to radically improve your health and your energy, right? It's really the foundations that are really important, which we tend to skip, and we tend to think that we're doing efficiently, but we're actually not, right? Drinking adequate amounts of water, eating high quality foods specific to your needs, having the right proper exercise, managing your stress, having healthy relationships, breathing correctly, which also having proper posture, all impact your health and vitality and your wellness. So it's really important to lock in on the basics, and you'll see sustainable changes on your health journey. So I hope this video was good, and we'll see you in the next one.